Section 43. Dhritarashtra said, "What is the object of asceticism, mauna, of the two kinds of mauna, with the restraining of speech and meditation, which is approved by thee? O Lord One, tell me the true aspect of mauna. Can a person of learning attain to a state of quietude and emancipation, moksha, by that mauna? O Muni, how also is asceticism, mauna, to be practised here?" Sanat-sujata said, "Since the Supreme Soul cannot be penetrated by both the Vedas and the mind, it is for this that the soul itself is called mauna, that from which both the Vedic syllable Om and this one, ordinary sounds, have horizon. That one, O king, is displayed as the word." Dhritarashtra said, "Is he that knoweth both the Rig and the Yajus Vedas? Is he that knoweth the Soma Veda, sullied by sins or not when he committeth sins?" Sanat-sujata said, "I tell thee truly that the man that hath not restrained his senses is not rescued from his sinful acts by either the Soma or the Rig or the Yajus Veda. The Vedas never rescue from sin the deceitful person living by deceit. On the other hand, like new-fledged birds forsaking their nest, the Vedas forsake such a person at the end." Dhritarashtra said, "O thou that hast restrained thy senses, if indeed the Vedas are not competent to rescue a person without the aid of virtue, whence then is this delusion of the Brahmanas that the Vedas are always destructive of sins?" Sanat-sujata said, "O magnanimous one, this universe hath sprung from that Supreme Soul by the union of conditions respecting name, form, and other attributes. The Vedas also, pointing it out duly, declare the same and inculcate that the Supreme Soul and the universe are different and not identical. It is for attaining to that Supreme Soul that asceticism and sacrifices are ordained, and it is by these too that the man of learning earneth virtue. Destroying sin by virtue, his soul is enlightened by knowledge. The man of knowledge, by the aid of knowledge, attaineth to the Supreme Soul. Otherwise, he that conveyeth the four objects of human pursuit, taking with him all that he doth here, enjoyeth their fruits hereafter, and as those fruits are not everlasting, cometh back to the region of action when the enjoyment is over. Indeed, the fruits of ascetic austerities performed in this world have to be enjoyed in the other world, as regards those persons who have not obtained the mastery of their souls. As regards those Brahmanas employed in ascetic practices, who have the mastery of their souls, even these regions are capable of yielding fruits." Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanat-sujata, how can ascetic austerities, which are all of the same kind, be sometimes successful and sometimes unsuccessful? Tell us this in order, and what we may know it." Sanat-sujata said, "That asceticism which is not stained by desire and other faults is said to be capable of procuring emancipation, and he is therefore successful, while the asceticism that is stained by vanity and want of true devotion is regarded unsuccessful. All thy enquiries, O Kshatriya, touch the very root of asceticism. It is by asceticism that they that are learned know Brahman and win immortality." Dhritarashtra said, "I have listened to what thou hast said about asceticism, unstained by faults, and by which I have succeeded in knowledge, in knowing an eternal mystery. Tell me now, O Sanat-sujata, about asceticism that is stained by faults." Sanat-sujata said, "O king, the 12, including anger, as also the 13 kinds of wickedness, are the faults of asceticism that is stained: anger, lust, avarice, ignorance of right and wrong, discontent, cruelty, malice, vanity, grief, love of pleasure, envy, and speaking ill of others are generally the faults of human beings. These 12 should always be avoided by men. Any one amongst these can singly effect the destruction of men. O bull among men, indeed every one of these wait for opportunity in respect of men, like a hunter expectant of opportunities in respect of deer. Assertion of one's own superiority, desire of enjoying others' wives, humiliating others from excess of pride, wrathfulness, fickleness, and refuse to maintain those worthy of being maintained. These 6 acts of wickedness are always practiced by sinful men. defying all dangers here and hereafter. He that regards the gratification of lust to be one of life's aims, he that is exceedingly proud, he that grieves having given away, he that never spends money, he that persecutes his subjects by exacting hateful taxes, he that delights in the humiliation of others, and he that hates his own wives. These 7 are others, but are also called wicked: righteousness, truth, abstention from injury and truthfulness of speech, self-restraint, asceticism, delight in the happiness of others, modesty, forbearance, love of others, sacrifices, gifts, perseverance, knowledge of the scriptures. These 12 constitute the practice of Brahmanas. He that succeeds in acquiring these 12 becomes competent to sway the entire earth. He that is endued with 3, 2, or even one of these should be regarded of heavenly prosperity. Self-restraint, renunciation, and knowledge of self, in these are emancipation. Those Brahmanas that are endued with wisdom say that these are attributes in which truth predominates. Self-restraint is constituted by 18 virtues: breaches and non-observance of ordained acts and omissions, falsehood, malice, lust, wealth, love of sensual pleasure, anger, grief, thirst, avarice, deceit, joy in the misery of others, envy, injuring others, regret, aversion, from pure acts, forgetfulness of duty, culminating others, and vanity. He that is freed from these 18 vices is said by the righteous to be self-restrained. The 18 faults that have been enumerated constitute what is called mada, or pride. Renunciation is of 6 kinds. The reverse of these 6 again are faults called mada. The faults therefore that go by the name of mada are 18 and 6. The 6 kinds of renunciation are all commendable. The third only is difficult of practice, but by that all sorrow is overcome. Indeed, if that kind of renunciation be accomplished in practice, he that accomplishes it overcomes all the pairs of contraries in the world. The 6 kinds of renunciation are all commendable. They are these. The first is never experiencing joy on occasions of prosperity. The second is the abandonment of sacrifices, prayers, and pious acts. That which is called the third walking is the abandonment of desire, or withdrawing from the world. Indeed, it is in consequence of this third kind of renunciation of desire, which is evidenced by the abandonment of all objects of enjoyment without enjoying them, and not their abandonment after having enjoyed them to the full, nor by abandonment after acquisition, nor by abandonment only after one has become incompetent to enjoy from loss of appetite. The fourth kind of renunciation consists in this: one should not grieve nor suffer himself to be afflicted by grief when one's actions fail, notwithstanding one's possession of all the virtues and all kinds of wealth. Or when anything disagreeable happens, one feeleth no pain. The fifth kind of renunciation consists in not soliciting even one's sons, wives, and others that may all be very dear. The sixth kind consists in giving away to a deserving person who solicits, which act of gifts is always productive of merit. By these again one acquires the knowledge of self. As regards this last attribute, it involves 8 qualities. These are truth, meditation, distinction of subject and object, capacity for drawing inferences, withdrawal from the world, never taking what belongeth to others, the practices of brahmacharya vows, abstinence, and non-acceptance of gifts. So also the attribute of mada, the opposite of dhamma or self-restraint, hath faults which have all been indicated in the scriptures. These faults should be avoided. I have spoken to thee of renunciation and self-knowledge, and as of self-knowledge hath 8 virtues, so the want of it hath 8 faults. Those faults should be avoided, O Bharata. He that is liberated from his 5 senses, mind, the past, and the future, becomes happy. O king, let thy soul be devoted to truth, All the worlds are established on truth. Indeed, self-control, renunciation, and self-knowledge are said to have truth for their foremost attribute. Avoiding these faults, one should practice asceticism here. The ordainer hath ordained that truth alone should be the vow of the righteous. Asceticism that is dissociated with these faults and endued with these virtues becomes the source of that great prosperity. I have now briefly told these about that sin destroying and sacred subject which thou hadst asked me, and which is capable of liberating a person from birth, death, and decrepitude. Dhritarashtra said, with Akyana, Pranas as their fifth, the Vedas declare the Supreme Soul to be this universe, consisting of mobile and immobile things. Others regard 4 Godheads and others 3. Others again regard 2 and others only 1. And others regard Brahman alone as the sole existence object, there being nothing else possessing a separate existence. Among these, which should I know to be really possessed of the knowledge of Brahman? Sanat-sujata said, there is but one Brahman, which is truth's self. It is from ignorance of that one that Godheads have been conceived to be diverse. But who is there, O king, that hath attained to truth's self or Brahman? Man regards himself wise without knowing that one object of knowledge, and from desire of happiness is engaged in study and the practices of charity and sacrifices. They have deviated from truth, Brahman, and entertained purposes corresponding with their state, and hence, relying on the truth of Vedic text, they have performed sacrifices. Some perform or attain the object of sacrifices by the mind meditation, some by words recitation of particular prayers or yapa, and some by acts actual consummation of the yatishtoma and other costly rites. The person, however, who seeketh Brahman through truth obtaineth his desired objects at home. When, however, one's purposes become abortive through absence of knowledge of self, one should adopt vows of silence and such like. Diksha Vrata. Indeed, Diksha cometh from the root Diksha, meaning the observance of vows. As regards those that have knowledge of self, with them truth is the highest object of pursuit. The fruits of knowledge are visible. Asceticism yieldeth fruits hereafter. A Brahmana who without knowledge and asceticism hath only read much should only be known as a great reader. Therefore, O Kshatriya, never think that one can be a Brahmana, Brahman knowing by only reading the scriptures. He, on the other hand, should be known by thee to be possessed of the knowledge of Brahman, who doth not deviate from truth. O Kshatriya, the verses that were recited by Atharvan to a conclave of great sages in days of old are known by the name of Chandas. They are not to be regarded as acquainted with the Chandas, who have only read through the Vedas without having attained to the knowledge of him who is to be known through the Vedas. The Chandas, O best of men, become the means of obtaining Brahman independently and without the necessity of anything for him. They cannot be regarded as acquainted with the Chandas, who are acquainted only with the modes of sacrifice enjoined in the Vedas. On the other hand, having waited upon those that are acquainted with the Vedas, have not the righteous attained to the object that is knowable by the Vedas. There is none who hath truly caught the sense of the Vedas, or there may be some who have, O king, caught the sense. He that hath only read the Vedas doth not know the object knowable by them. He, however, that is established in truth knoweth the object knowable by the Vedas. Amongst those faculties which lead to perception of the body as the acting agent, there is none by which true knowledge may be acquired. By the mind alone one cannot acquire the knowledge of self and not self. Indeed, he that knoweth self also knoweth what is not self. He, on the other hand, that knoweth only what is not self, that doth not know truth. He again that knoweth the proofs knoweth also that which is sought to be proved. But what that object in its nature is which is sought to be proved is not known to either the Vedas or those that are acquainted with the Vedas. For all that, however, those Brahmanas that are truly acquainted with the Vedas succeed in obtaining a knowledge of the object knowable by the Vedas through the Vedas, as the branch of a particular tree is sometimes resorted to for pointing out the lunar digit of the first day of the lighted fortnight. So the Vedas are used for indicating the highest attributes of the Supreme Soul. I know him to be a Brahmana, possessing a knowledge of Brahman, who expoundeth the doubts of others, having himself mastered all his own doubts, and who is possessed of the knowledge of self. One cannot find what the soul is by seeking in the east, the south, the west, the north, or in the subsidiary directions, or horizontally. Very rarely can it be found in him who regardeth this body to be self. Beyond the conception of even the Vedas, the man of yoga meditation only can behold the Supreme, completely restraining all thy senses and thy mind also. Seek thou that Brahman which is known to reside in thy own soul. He is not a Muni who practiseth only yoga meditation, nor he who liveth only in the woods, having retired from the world. He, however, is a Muni, and he is superior to all who knoweth his own nature, in consequence of one's being able to expound every object. Vyakarana, one is said to be endued with universal knowledge. Vyakarana, and indeed, the science itself is called Vyakarana, owing to its being able to expound every object to its very root, which is Brahman. The man who beholdeth all the regions present before his eyes is said to be possessed of universal knowledge. He that stayeth in truth and knoweth Brahman is said to be a Brahmana, and a Brahmana possesseth universal knowledge. A Kshatriya also that practices such virtues may behold Brahman. He may also attain to that eighth state by ascending step by step according to what is indicated in the Vedas. Knowing it for certain, I tell thee this. Thus endeth section 43 in the Sanat-sujata Parva of the Udyoga Parva.